showtime. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the latest episode of the ChannelPro 5-Minute Roundup. A look at news, trends, and tips for the SMB channel in 5 minutes or thereabouts. My name is Rich Freeman. I am executive editor of the ChannelPro Network. I am also one of your co-hosts on this program. I am joined this week, as every week, by my co-host, Eric Simpson, a business transformation and improvement consultant for MSPs, and other IT providers. Eric, while I untie my tongue here, tell folks how you're doing this week.
Doing great this week, Rich. I like more and more folks that I'm talking to. I'm not traveling as much in these last few weeks, and I'm sure we'll have more to talk about another 5-minute roundup on that topic. But I'm here at home base, Southern California, and I know that you are in a very special location.
Indeed. So right now I am broadcasting from my hotel room here in Dallas, where ChannelPro just held our first live event of the year, our first SMB forum event for 2020 yesterday. Phenomenal. We're very, very excited about it. And if you're interested to learn more about our event series, because we have events coming up in Washington, D.C. in May, and Raleigh, North Carolina in July, Boston in September, Southern California, specifically City of Industry in November. If you're curious to know more about these events, go to events.channelpronetwork.com and you can get all the details. But we did our Dallas show here yesterday, and it was great. But you know what, Eric, you're exactly right. I predict this will be the last time that 5-Minute Roundup viewers see me in a hotel room for a while, because a lot of conferences are getting canceled right now.
Yep. And boy, I tell you what, if you do get a chance to get out, I highly recommend the ChannelPro events. I mean, there's no event like it. So I know that there's a lot going on in travel and buzz. Hopefully, we'll get past this, and folks will build their confidence back up to start going to these events. I know we're talking to a lot of folks, you and I both, that are concerned about travel. And you know what? As long as it's not international travel, knock on wood, I think we're okay. But it is impacting a lot of events and conferences. So, hopefully we'll cover that in an upcoming episode.
Yeah. No, it's definitely something, a topic we should revisit. But for this week, let's plunge into our top story, which has to do with an interesting feature addition to the backup products from Axcient. And this is something that they actually added to their X360 platform, which is sort of the new integrated backup platform, really sort of their integrated partner platform at Axcient, because it combines management tools for BDR products with things like the billing system and marketing materials and so on. It kind of pulls it all together and unifies it. But they have added, 4 months ago, in fact, they added a new technology to that platform without talking about it a whole lot. And it was specifically designed to protect backups from ransomware attacks. Now, one of the things, and this is a topic that came up last week when I was at the RSA conference, a big security conference last week. People who are writing ransomware attacks are aware of the fact that, as the backup vendors say, backup is the last line of defense against ransomware. If all else fails, you can at least restore the customer's data, and then they don't have to pay the ransom. Well, the attackers know this as well, and so they are actually looking for backups in these attacks that they are writing and sending out to end users. They're searching for backups, they're deleting those backups, they're encrypting them, they're corrupting them, they're trying to eliminate that last line of defense. So Axcient has added this new technology that they're calling air gap into the X360 platform to prevent that kind of an issue. And it works in a number of different ways. But the two kind of biggest things that it does is it creates some barriers in the process that would be required. If somebody actually legitimately wants to delete a backup, to alter a backup, alter a backup rather, they can still do that, but there's a series of validations that you have to go through to prove, essentially, that this is a legitimate intended request. It's not coming from ransomware. The other thing that they did, which is really kind of interesting, is they're creating essentially backups of backups on a segregated portion of the network somewhere, and they're retaining those, essentially archiving them for brief periods of time. And the idea is, if a ransomware attack successfully gets to a backup, then for this window of time, and Axcient won't say how long that window is open, but during that window, if you need to get that data back that's been corrupted by ransomware, you can. And in fact, in the 4 months that they've been quietly using this technology, that's already happened multiple times, where an MSP has contacted them and said, my customer got hit, the backup got hit, and to their amazement, essentially, as Axcient described it, they discovered that actually they could recover that data because Axcient has this air gap technology that had been hiding, essentially, a copy of the data for some number of days, someplace where the ransomware people couldn't see it. So it's a further reflection of just how dangerous ransomware is. We are getting better at spotting it and addressing it, but it continues to be a major and rampant issue in the industry. And I think we're going to see more of these kinds of technologies coming along out of necessity to protect production data and backup data and everything else from these incredibly dangerous attacks.
Yeah, key word there, necessity, right? The mother of invention, Rich. So my hat's off to Axcient and the other, backup vendors out there that are innovating at a very rapid pace to try to, staunch that kind of last bastion of business continuity, right? Which is the backup. So this is a very interesting take on it, where they're actually, we're just tucking that away over here that nobody knows where that is, right? It's a different take. It's almost kind of like the what is that axiom where the simplest answer is typically the best answer. Oh, we'll just hide it where they're not going to be able to find it or look, but it's still there if we need to recover from it. So it's very interesting. And for any fans out there of the show Altered Carbon, that's a show that takes backup in a very unique and different way. So I'll just leave that breadcrumb for you guys to figure that out.
It's worth noting about this hiding place for the backups that Axcient has created, that almost nobody has access to that data. There's like a very small circle of people at Axcient who have privileges and can get in there. So they've made it harder to get at a frontline backup, if you will. But they've made it almost impossible to get to the segregated backups of the backups out there. And I mean, that's the kind of stuff that you've got to do these days. So Eric, what is your tip of the week this week? We haven't even talked about it.
Yeah, we haven't even talked about it. And my tip of the week is a book recommendation this week, Rich. And the book is titled Crucial Conversations, Tools for Talking When Stakes Are High. And it's got a slew of authors, Carrie Patterson, Joseph Grenny, Ron McMillan, Al Switzler, Laura Ropp, but just search for Crucial Conversations and it'll pop up. And what this book teaches us is really kind of, there's a lot of life lessons in here, but it's when you have to have a very challenging conversation when two people are on opposite sides of an issue. And this happens in our personal lives, it happens in our business lives, it happens with staff, with superiors, with team members all the time. And what it does is it teaches us to remove the emotion from the conversation. I mean, at its essence, if I had to give you like the teaspoonful bit of wisdom that I've gleaned from it, and I'm about halfway through it, and I'm so impressed with it. And it's been recommended to me, over many years by different people. So it's been around a little while. And I think there's trainings built around this and all kinds of things, these industries that pop up when you've got a new way of solving an issue. But what I've gleaned from it is, the takeaway that I'll leave our viewers with today is, one lesson is, if you're getting into or getting ready to have this crucial conversation or difficult conversation when stakes are high and there's opposing views on both sides, step back and think about what is it that you want. What is it that you want for the other person or people that you're dealing with? And those are the first two steps. And then what is it that you want the overall outcome to be? And so what the book tells us is that we will interject all kinds of noise and things that don't really pertain to the issue at hand, right? All this emotional baggage that we bring to it. But if we just focus on what we want and what we want for the other person, and then come together to try to make that happen. And there's techniques on how to conduct that conversation and guide the conversation in this way. And it takes a while. I mean, I've been trying it, and, like anything new, it's kind of, you got to wrap your mind around it. And then the toughest part is to kind of get into that Zen moment where you say, okay, set aside emotion, be very kind of Vulcan about this and logical, right? And move through this process. It's very, very interesting. And the other finding that, kind of led the authors to this kind of technique or discovery is what they did was they looked at high performers in a lot of different businesses, and they singled out, the folks that were actually the ones that could get things done. And these were the folks that were not afraid to stand up and challenge leadership or a superior, but in such a way that they were using these techniques almost subconsciously. And so that's what the authors keyed off of and started to try to boil it down into some formula that could be applied to everyone, and that all of these high-performing folks that identified in these organizations all kind of had this, this way of doing things. So it's a really interesting read. I highly recommend it. Again, it's called Crucial Conversations.
My colleague, Colleen Fry at ChannelPro, now and again will publish a new edition, an update to what we call the ChannelPro Book Club, which is where she goes out to, MSPs and VARs and readers of the magazine we know and asks them for a book that they have read that they recommend. And that one has come up before. And, it's a generalization, obviously, but I think it's safe to say there are a lot of introverts in our industry, a lot of people who are much more comfortable getting face-to-face with technology than getting face-to-face with customers. And I mean, that's not why they created a business. And it's difficult under any circumstances to have a hard conversation with somebody. If you're somebody who by nature doesn't really enjoy that, it's especially difficult. So, right up there with sales and marketing, maybe, knowing how to have a difficult conversation with a customer is challenging for a lot of channel pros and something that they're really looking for guidance on. And I have not read this book, but I've heard about it enough to get the impression that this is helpful in that area.
Certainly, definitely helpful in getting your mind around, a process to manage conflict resolution in a way that everyone wins. When it's done properly. And again, it takes, it's one of those books where I'm gonna have to read it 2 or 3 times and really kind of put it into practice and be intentional about it, because it is very counter to how we typically behave when we're getting, into a conversation where there's disagreement. And, like, as you said, Rich, people shy away from confrontation. And, I think these techniques will help us see this in a different way, not see it quite as the confrontational event that historically it might have been, and see it as an opportunity and a challenge to try to resolve these issues in a much less confrontational and more logical way.
Well, definitely a good book tip there, Eric. Appreciate that. And it leaves us with time for just one more story this week, and it's one that I think will resonate with brothers who have a sister, sisters who have a brother. An interesting tale here. So let's rewind just a few years and imagine a young woman, teenager at that time, named Riva Weinstock, in the car with her brother Mendel, driving somewhere or another with some of Riva's friends in the car. And so Riva and her buddies are kind of, fantasizing about their perfect wedding day. And young Mendel really is getting bored and tired of this conversation, and kind of does what little brothers do in that situation, and basically says, if you make me go to this wedding, I'm bringing a llama. And Riva, at first thought this was a really stupid idea that she wanted nothing to do with, but he was kind of insistent about it. So she said, fine, if I get married, you can bring a llama. Fast forward to today, guess who just got married? And guess who brought a llama to the wedding, Eric? Mendel followed through on his promise, took advantage of Riva's invitation. You got to go online and see the pictures, folks, to fully appreciate this story. But and put yourself in the shoes of the happy couple as the brother shows up with a full-size llama.
And well dressed too. I mean, the llama's wearing the appropriate attire for a wedding. It reminds me that one of the funniest Disney movies, cartoons that my family always enjoys. It's a gem. We pull it out every once in a while. It's The Emperor's New Groove, and that's the whole story of the main character is this ruler, and he gets bewitched and turned into a llama, and it's David Spade who is the character. So you can imagine, oh, my llama face, and it's very, very funny. But yeah, it's you've got to Google and look at the pictures. Llama wedding, it's awesome.
And you got to be careful what you say and what you agree to with your brothers and sisters, folks, because this stuff will stick with you in ways that you may not have anticipated. Now, that is all the time we've got this week on the ChannelPro 5-Minute Roundup. Thank you so much for joining us. If you like the show, you might want to take a look at some episodes you missed in the past, keep up on new episodes as they become available. What you want to do is go to the ChannelPro Network channel on YouTube and subscribe to that. Make sure you click that little bell icon if you want to get notifications when the new episodes go up. To read more about AirGap, this technology from Axcient we were talking about, and also to get all sorts of great information about business growth strategies, new developments in the industry, place to go is channelpronetwork.com. There is great new content going up there every single day. To learn more about Erick and the work that he does with his clients, your destination should be ericksimpson.com. That is ERICK Simpson.com. So that is it for this week. We will speak with you again next week, folks. Until then, please enjoy the rest of your week. Erick and I are enjoying the rest of your week already.